Hello and welcome to the Schooner Pod. It finally happened. We can finally just move on. Caleb Williams is officially going to USC. He is a Trojan, enrolled, done and dusted. And side note, Jackson Dart also committed to Ole Miss. So we're moving forward with Dylan Gabriel. We can just do the damn podcast. But let's get this thing started. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, we got Jameson, we got Ty, joining you for a special lunchtime edition of the Schooner Pod. And fellas, it finally happened. But Jameson, what was your reaction to the news, and how are you feeling right now?
I had to be about time. I knew it was coming soon because there's this whole thing of Jackson Dart's waiting on Caleb Williams and his decision, and Jackson Dart wouldn't have made the decision if it wasn't for Caleb Williams already making his. So once Dart's news leaked, it made sense that Caleb Williams probably already put in the paperwork and was already doing stuff to get to USC. And we came to find out in that ESPN article, the deadline was Friday. I still bet they could have waited a little bit longer and pulled some strings, but getting in right before the buzzer, that tells you a lot about what Caleb Williams thinks about going to USC if he's taking it right down to the end.
Yeah, no, it clearly was probably not a quick decision. I don't think Caleb is that ridiculous to string it on if he already knew and committed to USC. So clearly he was still trying to bid other teams against him. That Wisconsin rumor was clearly just probably something to, drive up the price, but it's done. Ty, your reaction to everything. And yeah,
I think first off, if you can kind of zoom out and sort of detach from the emotions of the situation, I think you have to say, and I want to personally, I don't know if I speak for you guys, but I want to give Caleb Williams credit because I think he did this the right way. He finished out the season, which was huge. He didn't have to do that. That is by far not the expectation in college football nowadays for players or coaches to even play in the bowl game, especially when it's not a playoff game. So we got to give him credit for that. Came in, got us another win in a great sort of historic game that we've recapped before with Stoops and the Oregon rematch and everything. So we got to give him credit for that. He took his time, and drew it out to some extent, but you have to understand that he was doing things, behind the scenes, trying to get the best deal for himself. And that's all you can expect from a guy. And he committed to play for Lincoln Riley in college. He didn't necessarily, commit to come to Oklahoma. He's didn't grow up an OU fan, and all that stuff. So you gotta know that people are going to do what's best for themselves or what they believe to be best for themselves. And arguably, this could have been the best thing in terms of his development. His thoughts are, and most people's thoughts are not, how do I win this place a championship? It's, a pit stop on their way to the league to get stomped by Joe Burrow. So it's really, you can't, I don't think you can fault him too much. And I guess I want to take the positive route here also to say that this is good that we now finally have news, a firm, definitive news that you can act on, whether it's our staff coming up with plans or potentially other people transferring in, or even just the fans having that, understanding of what's going to go on or storylines to talk about, which everyone loves. So getting news is better than this going throughout the entire summer, because there was a potential that this was just going to go through the whole summer, us never knowing what was going to happen. So I think it's good. And I don't think anyone should be too angry at Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and I get the vitriol. I get that people are upset. It's tough to have your guy who was that good leave to, not just anywhere, but USC, who just kind of have pilfered us. But, let's be honest. This is something we thought was going to happen, something we expected was going to happen. And I agree. I think you got to give him credit for staying for the bowl. I thought he did that perfectly well. The issue I have is kind of with the whole process. But at the end of the day, you got to remember, this kid's like an 18-year-old guy. He is a kid. And when your dad or your family tells you to do something, you probably listen to him. And let's just kind of be honest, it's frustrating. I agree, but I just can't have the same anger at this guy that I do with like a Lincoln Riley, who's a grown adult and intentionally screwed OU over all the way through. at least Lincoln. Look, at least Caleb played every single game. Actually cared about the season all the way through. Something Lincoln Riley clearly did not. If you want to be mad at Lincoln for it, be mad at Lincoln for it. If you want to be mad at Carl Williams or the Williams camp for trying to play this out into a big old NIL dog and pony show, be mad at them. And yeah, you can be frustrated with Caleb. It's an unfortunate decision, but at the same time, it's still, he's not exactly, fully in charge of his life here, which is unfortunate. And I get that people are like, oh, we don't need to feel sorry for him. Just move on.
Mm-hmm. My thing, Bobby, is I feel like people are pissed off about how it was played out and trying to get the best NIL deal. But think about your life. Think about just something as simple on a micro scale, because you can't compare this situation in yourself to what he has at his hands and the value he has to bring of pitting colleges against each other to get a certain deal. Think about you negotiating your cable deal, for example. I'm going to call AT&T and I'm going to pit them against Cox because I want to get a good deal on my cable. Does that mean I'm any kind of a lesser of a person for doing that? No, I'm just using the resource and the leverage that I have at hand. And I think that's what Caleb Williams did. And I think it's smart to do that because you don't get that opportunity often to get that kind of value extracted. And I think he did what he had to do. So I don't get the anger about him. Oh, he's just using this to try to get more money and a better deal. Why not try that? Of course you should try that. You're an 18-year-old, 19-year-old.
Yeah, and I get that. I think there's a lot of upset feelings because that's kind of not how college football has been. And
but that's how it is now. It's changing. You got to keep up with the times. You can't be this person stuck in the times well, I'm going to stick to my guns and do things the old way. And if you did that, you'd never sign up for the internet. You'd never be, using email anymore. And I'd be sending letters every single time in the mail. You've got to adapt to new times. And whenever there's leverage at hand, there's a value for you to extract, you use it. And if you ignore that value that you have at your hands, it's stupid and non-profitable.
Well, I get that. Yeah, but I feel like he definitely, this sort of decision should have been quicker. It should have been faster. I feel like it was probably just kind of in disregard to, OU, and OU cut that rope because that, they wanted to move on from that. And I don't blame them from it. It just went on for too long. I did not really appreciate some of it. I get having meetings. I get seeing what you can get out of it. But I feel like this is in general probably bad for Caleb in terms of he's missed a couple weeks of camp. It sends a bad message to both locker rooms or any locker room he steps into. He is anointed as this savior in a different type of way, and it rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. I personally agree with OU for moving on from him. And yeah, I don't know. I can't be mad at him, but I can be like, okay, yeah, that's not how I would want my program to be run all the way.
The situation sucks, but I'm not mad at Caleb. I'm mad at the situation.
The fact that it is something that could happen is frustrating. That they did not have guidelines against this sort of thing to happen. So,
yeah, I will say a quote comes to mind from the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and Jack Sparrow says, this is a quote by Jack Sparrow. He says, I'm dishonest, and a dishonest person you can always trust to be dishonest. It's the honest ones you have to look out for, and that sort of comes to mind when I think about the Lincoln Riley Caleb Williams situation. Was we assumed that Lincoln Riley was an honest person, and that's how we got burned, whereas Caleb Williams, if you understand, you're not saying he's dishonest, but the individual that's doing the best, thing in their interest, you can trust that they're always going to do that. I do think, I think there are secondary and tertiary and down the road effects that prevented this, but I think it would have been a massive flex by OU, and I would have loved had the second that Caleb Williams announced he was going into the transfer portal, Venables and OU to just announce, hey, we're cutting him from the team, which would have been a cool flex, but you never know how people are going to spin that in the recruiting and how potential players are going to look at that. So we're sort of riding the the rule book here in this new era of college football. OU is we didn't win the championship. We weren't nationally competitive this year, but we're on the forefront of sort of shaping the future of the sport with all this stuff that's occurring, because all the other schools are looking at this. This is the biggest talking point is these new rules that have been implemented when it comes to transfers, when it comes to pay and everything else. And OU is right in the midst of this, is sort of getting as far as we can tell right now, maybe a short stick in the deal. And what we're seeing now with OU is historic, not only to OU, but I really think that all the other schools are going to see this. The other governing bodies, whether it be the conferences, the NCAA, or who knows what the future holds, are going to see this. And a lot of people are going to understand, what happened to OU could happen to anyone. Maybe we need to change these rules around, particularly with eligibility of transferring, I think is going to be a big one. So, and I do have to say again, OU fans, I think this stings a little bit more for us because we're not used to this. We've talked about these sort of tenured coaches. If you're a Florida fan, you didn't have the same reaction when Urban Meyer went to Ohio State. After I'm sure there were a lot of them that were burned, but it's just not the norm across college football that you have these sort of long tenured coaches. Maybe, I guess at Bama, you can argue with Bear Bryant and now Nick Saban, especially they're sort of more used to, they would be very affected, if Saban went somewhere else. But,
and I will say with Florida, Urban retired, one of his infamous, I need to retire for my health sort of deals. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of anger with Lincoln, and I think that's I think that's fair. But I don't know. Quarterbacks don't usually leave OU like this. And I understand getting burnt. Well, that's
a long time ago, but
that was a little different. Troy Aikman was Spencer Rattler, but actually got hurt instead. So
do not do that.
You got better.
He was called Troy Aikman Spencer Rattler.
He was
I think this is a good segue into what are we going to remember from the Caleb Williams era of OU? Because by God, that Red River win was amazing, but
I think you have to remember like the good parts. Just like, I feel like I remember the good parts of, Kevin Durant, in Oklahoma City. You remember that Texas comeback. You remember that, really weird Kansas play. And the fact I feel like he truly did give it his all at OU every snap out there. And that's all you can ask of the guy. After the season, that's, I guess, now wherever you go. But I think you look back on him fondly, and I think he becomes kind of a new what if, in the same sense of, how we look back on at Marcus Dupree, and obviously different situations. I'm not calling Caleb Williams Marcus Dupree by any means, in terms of character or anything.
It would be hateful and wrong to say that you wish that Caleb Williams becomes the next Marcus Dupree. I'm not saying I wish that, but I would not be mad, and I would get some laughs out of it if he did.
I definitely want him to regret his decision. So I don't know.
I think Caleb
never
does.
was part two.
I think Caleb does regret this decision. I feel like, yes, as fans, we're going to remember a lot of the good things. And I think Caleb Williams is going to do the same thing. I believe if he had it optimally and he could go back and change his cards up, he'd want to stay at OU. I saw a tweet from Sam Mays, and he said Caleb Williams screwed up so bad that because if he would have stayed here at OU, he would have been like the savior, like the Russell Westbrook kind of comparison, make another Thunder comparison, of the guy who stays loyal during a tumultuous time of, heartache and betrayal and leading up a wonderful charge in this transition period. But guess what? That wasn't the case, because I really think it's because of OU's end. I think they saw this situation and they said, okay, I see Caleb Williams entering the portal no matter what here. It's going to happen. He's going to entertain his offers. And there's a chance he could stay. There's a pretty good chance he could stay. But there's also a pretty darn good chance that he could leave. And in this period where we just lost our coach and we're getting ready to move to the SEC, can we take that risk to go after or put all of our eggs in one basket on Caleb Williams? And even though with Caleb Williams as the quarterback, we'd have a higher ceiling, what happens if we do that and then we don't get him and then we don't get a guy like Dylan Gabriel or, another transfer quarterback. And in the most important position on our team, we don't have anyone to do to play that position. And they said, I'm not going to take that kind of risk because that could stunt our program for 10 years to move forward, a bad couple of years before the SEC. Recruiting will therefore follow if we have a bad couple of years, thinking that we're just going to be some poor man's SEC team like the next, like not Vanderbilt, but, like a Kentucky level thing.
Arkansas.
Yeah, like Arkansas. It's just not worth the risk. And OU decided to move on and didn't shut the door on Caleb, but moved on from him. And therefore, Caleb was stuck. Should I go with a guy that I don't trust who just betrayed me, that I moved halfway across the country to go, and now I have to move full across the country to go with him? Or should I go to a program that's given up on me pretty much, is already going to keep Dylan Gabriel, isn't giving me the offers that I want? What's that face, Bobby? You don't think that Dylan Gabriel is going to stay either way?
Well, no, I was saying I don't think that OU gave up on him. I think that
they didn't. I wasn't saying they didn't shut the door. They just weren't. They weren't entertained. They weren't giving him his presentation that he wanted. He didn't want all of the crazy, whatever the love, his own loves thing that you were talking about in our group text. They weren't playing that game because it just wasn't worth the effort. They were taking the middle road. They were hedging their bets, making sure that they didn't stunt their program for the next 10 years by going all in on Caleb, giving all this effort and then not landing him.
Well, some of the rumors I had heard, are definitely insanely high up there. And it was a lot to ask. It wasn't just like, please give me money, or, it wasn't like, Texas's, little NIL deal they have for their linemen. It wasn't that level at all. It was a level that was frankly too high for really anyone to offer. And honestly, it's just, it was too much. And OU shutting the door, I thought they navigated it perfectly. They heard him out, and turned him down, frankly, because some things are just a little too much. And I'll put it this way. OU is in a better place with Dylan Gabriel than USC is with Caleb Williams right now. In the interim this year, entering 2022, I would say that OU is in a better place than Caleb Williams is at USC, just football wise. This was not a very good decision, I would say, for Caleb. Even though USC has, Travis Dye and has had some big transfers, I personally don't see it as, like a, I honestly just don't see it like being a massive sort of deal. In terms of, they're not going to compete. They're not going to beat Utah, I don't think.
Their offensive line is their problem. They're big guys on both sides of the ball. We see all these USC transfers, all these skill positions, all these flashy 5-stars, but what we're not seeing are the big guys. So that's their problem right now, and that'll come with time. But this season,
are you trying to tell me that? Are you trying to tell me that a Lincoln Riley team might have a lot of flash, but their underlying problems?
I don't think we've seen that. No, never.
Oh no!
Offensive line wins football games. I'm gonna put my foot down on that one. Most important position in college football.
Yeah, I do want to hit on it. It's sort of an interesting point in college football right now, and I think it's the NIL thing that's really accentuating this. And to some extent, I wouldn't necessarily consider us the media because we're not big or influencing things, but the media as well, because the media needs storylines, and I'm talking like ESPN, like people that generate the storylines and sort of influence what people are talking about. One of the reasons why basketball has a tremendous advantage in sort of storylines is individual players are so crucial. Just adding one guy to your team, because that's 20% of your players on the field, by just adding one superstar, can win you a championship in basketball. I don't think that matters as much in college football, but with the NIL, with these big names, with all the money flowing into recruiting and everything else, and the media's need to generate these sort of storylines and conversations to generate clicks and views and everything else, there's this massive emphasis on individual players that is, you have this idea, if I get this one guy, that's going to win me the championship. And you go look at all of these teams that are winning championships. It's the teams. It's not, a star quarterback. I would challenge, I can name a few, but I feel like most casual fans couldn't even name half of the Bama quarterbacks that have won championships with their dynasty. I know there's a few sort of big names, but most of them are insignificant guys. And we just saw it in the NFL, even with, not that he's necessarily not that good. He has 2 rings as a backup, but Jimmy Garoppolo being one throw away from being in the Super Bowl. We get these big star quarterbacks in the NFL and then also in college, and sometimes other big star players, but usually the quarterback. And you get this idea that is the guy that's going to be a ring maker for you. And that's not the case when it comes to football. And I feel like that's sort of artificially inflated to some extent. We're doing the same thing because it's a big deal. If we have linemen and whatever else in the transfer portal, we didn't give them a dedicated episode when they left, like Caleb Williams. But it's what's interesting. But I would not, the ship is not sinking because we've lost this one little piece. And like you guys are saying, and I'm a hopeful thinker. I think a lot of OU fans feel this way. I'm excited to be moving to just fundamental, not exciting football, because that's what wins championships. Good linemen, good lines, good defenses are what's going to take us to the next level. Not sort of flashy, gimmicky, like Mario Williams. Not to be bitter because he left, but the guy is like 5'8" in reality. I think he's listed at like 5'9". He's like 5'8", maybe, potentially even shorter than that. He's not going to be a national championship sort of caliber guy, no matter how skilled he is, because people are just going to match him up against cornerbacks that are taller.
Boy, come on now. You got to think about small guys have always worked in national championships,
Because not as WR1s,
Shepard.
though. Not as WR1s, though. Well,
Sterling
okay.
Shepard was WR1.
Yeah.
D.D. Westbrook.
Yeah, how many national championships did Sterling Shepard win exactly?
So
you can't move the goalposts on me. I said national championships. I know you got guys.
Wide receivers don't make national championships, though.
I'm just thinking of Hunter.
But you need good ones. You need if you're basing your offense around a quarterback, you need receivers that are going to be open for him to throw to.
Hunter Renfro's route running and quick feet were the reason that Clemson.
Hunter Renfro was why Clemson won a national championship.
Well, no, he was the one who clinched it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
I understand that,
but you got to have those guys. But obviously, I think we're agreeing here that wide receivers aren't going to win any of the championships. But I think it's a huge piece to have a guy like Mario Williams for a guy like Caleb Williams. Wide receivers who can get open in college football are usually more powerful to me than 6 foot for bought guys who just go up and get it. Like, I think Hunter Renfro is a scarier wide receiver in college than a Mike Williams if you're talking about Clemson comparisons, even though both of them are stellar, very, very highly sought after NFL prospects. But they just kind of worked different from pro to college. So I think USC going forward is a team to watch. I think absolutely they have plenty of flash around them, and their recruiting is going to continue to pick up in that West Coast. There's going to be plenty of offensive and defensive linemen that are going to commit to that new team rather than going to cross the nation to the SEC because it's closer to home. You see there's a lot of really big kids who play in the West Coast. But right now, I feel like there's a lot of comparisons saying like, oh, USC's recruiting cycle sucked this year. Look at what they did compared to OU. They brought in some really big high-end players. They just didn't have a lot of guys commit because this was a very tumultuous time, and a coach coming in here at the last second, and trying to make up all this work, it's hard to make that happen. But next cycle, I'm not surprised that USC is a top 5 program, no doubt.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
the issue definitely isn't, long term. They'll get it figured out if Lincoln can, get the pieces in and, start winning games. I would say if it doesn't pick up by year 3, then you start to have a problem. But we'll see. I just don't see it right now at all. This USC team is quite honestly piss poor roster wise. Obviously you can't pin the recruiting class that Lincoln Riley just showed up on him. It was actually way worse before he got there. It was like ranking around like Eastern Michigan. But, my thing is I don't see it working out right now. And in terms of how USC improves, Lincoln Riley's got to be a better coach. he did really well with high level guys and with a pre-built system, but he's got to build this thing up. And how I mean he steamrolled the Big 12 with better guys, and then would botch a game or two. How many games does he botch with less talent? We'll see.
Well, I will say I think it is. I'm very happy in the next couple of years that we have the playoff because I'm not saying I wish the worst for Lincoln Riley and USC, but it would hurt to see them be tremendously successful. And I think with I think their conference is more competitive than the Big 12. Not saying they're better, but I think it is, the teams are more equal. It's not as top heavy. It is very top heavy, but the Big 12, you don't have sort of the variety, there where it's as competitive, where you have teams like Arizona State and whatever else. And that can go off on a whole tangent. But I think it is a little bit more competitive, but I think USC has such hype and such brand name, and they're out there on their own. It's going to be very easy for them to just get tremendous sort of hype in the media, especially, what their out of conference is going to be like Notre Dame every year or something that now is probably on a downturn. So I could see USC being a perennial top 5 team, even if the numbers don't match up, just because they're in an easier conference and they have all this hype, and then going into the playoffs and being the Notre Dame or the, as much as it hurts me to say, because we did have a competitive year in 2017, but Lincoln Riley and OU in the playoffs, where this team that puts up really impressive numbers, has flashy skill players that win the individual awards, but we're fundamentally flawed teams that are relying on sort of trick plays and gimmicks in Sooner magic or Trojan magic or whatever to get us through. And then we face up against these fundamental teams that are just built as juggernauts and get embarrassed. And I think that's the most probable case for USC. I think they will struggle initially. That's how everyone does rebuilding, but I think they will get good, and they'll get a ton of national hype with just bias and nostalgia and money and everything else. But I don't think that they're going to build a team around the staff that they brought in that's going to be a fundamental team. And this sounds bitter to say, but if you roll the tapes back as early as late September, I got burned a couple times on the podcast for saying, hey, maybe the coaching staff is the problem because they took over a successful team, and you guys kind of cold take me at the time. And it was kind of a cold take at the time, but I've been saying for a while, maybe there's some flaws in this sort of system when it comes to winning national championships, which is the standard. Obviously it was good enough to win Big 12. We probably would have won it this year had Lincoln remained fully committed to, the program, because that whole Bedlam drama and everything else. But and I think USC is, they've copy and pasted literally our quarterback, our OC, our head coach, our DC, and a lot of other stuff. They've copy and pasted, and I think they have a conference championship machine that they built over there, especially with the amount of money and resources that they have. But I think it's a fundamentally flawed sort of strategy that Lincoln Riley brings as a head coach, and I don't know that it's going to make them what they want to be.
Well, I mean, OU struggled to beat Kansas with Caleb Williams, Mario Williams, and a worse team, a better team, and now they're just putting them on a worse team. Same coach. We'll see how it works out. But I, for one, am okay, and I think y'all are too, probably, to just close the door on USC, ignore them out west, and just like every year, we'll forget about the Pac-12 as a whole in October. That's such tradition.
A lie.
Yeah, and the good news is,
I want to though. We should.
Well,
we should move on.
We want to, and we can. We won't because the storylines persist. But I will say it's important to know that we're sort of done with it now. We're through it. The last big domino has fallen. We knew it was going to fall, and we don't have to worry about it. And if you so desire, you can just push forward. So,
yeah, for sure. And let's talk about a little bit of OU stuff a little bit later. Obviously have signing day coming up this week. And Jameson, just kind of a little bit of a primer. We'll go in depth when it happens. But what is this new regime? What is the Brent Venerable's culture and system? How is it being built? What are the early days of the building blocks like?
Yeah, it seems like he's really putting out some positive vibes to like the culture. Everyone's really liking the way he conducts himself. There seems to be a noticeable difference compared to him and Lincoln in the way he carries himself as a human being, and it's coming off as a very positive thing to the families that are visiting. So let's talk about kind of what we're seeing for this National Signing Day. That's going to be tomorrow, Wednesday, and kind of what to expect in the future. I'd mentioned this on the past pods, but we've been seeing this in the recruits. Brent Venables does not want you visiting other places unless you're an Oklahoma commit. And I mean, if you're I worded that poorly. If you're an Oklahoma commit, you cannot take other visits. He's very old fashioned. You've got to do it. You got to stay in Oklahoma's boat, and you can't look in other waters. So that kind of shows you a lot whenever you see recruits start to cancel their visits after an OU visit, because you're like, okay, then that means it's probably a true Oklahoma commit. So first of all, that's where I'm talking about Jamarian Burt, a guy that I did not talk about on last week's podcast, that should be signing here this week and with OU, because he canceled his Missouri visit. He's a safety and straight up athlete, 6'1" guy that we've come in on late. And it looks like if he's canceling his visits and he just took a visit to OU, that kind of tells us that he's probably leaning OU. So Jamarian Burt, put that name in the back of your head. He's another Florida kid that we're going after that probably will be signing with OU this week. More guys that we have to talk about that we're looking at that are Florida guys, specifically Grayson Halton and R. Mason Thomas. I hit on them. Looks like Miami's hitting them hard, but we don't know if we're going to come out on top or Miami's going to come out on top, the hometown team or the guy that the coach that they like better. And, you know, I said last week that I was feeling a little bit more Miami, but it's probably looking more OU now. So those are two big defensive linemen that are looking to come from Florida and hopefully sign with Oklahoma this week. R. Mason Thomas, current Iowa State commit, would decommit from Iowa State to either go to Miami or us. And then Amon Moten, interior defensive lineman, who's got Miami legacy in his family, but is telling people that that is not a factor in his decision-making. A couple more things before we open for conversation. Devon Campbell, offensive lineman out of Texas, between OU and Texas, probably going to choose the NIL deal Texas. Gentry Williams will sign with OU after publicly committing to us again on Twitter through his photo shoots. And then I kind of want to talk about this a little bit because it's a fun little topic, especially for a couple of us that went to Heritage Hall. Getting the next Wes Welker, what people are talking about, and Gavin Freeman turning down a Texas Tech scholarship and then taking a preferred walk-on from OU. I understand he is an OU legacy, but turning down a full ride scholarship to Texas Tech to go to OU, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, and I think, obviously the legacy aspect of it is pretty major, and it's pretty cool because he's obviously bought into OU. He's obviously in on it. I think that's huge, and I will say it also kind of signifies something to me that we've seen recently is a bigger emphasis on Oklahoma guys, which is something that we've talked about on the show quite a bit, that there were issues where, Tulsa guys wouldn't go with OU because of kind of a perceived slight with Lincoln. We lost a lot of guys. Dax Hill is one of them, and it seems like the staff early on is hitting Oklahoma hard. Even though a guy might not have as many stars or might be a little smaller, it seems like they're kind of trying to make that a priority, which I think could be a pretty big game changer.
So just to clarify, a guy from Heritage Hall in Oklahoma City not getting an offer from OU, but then having to walk on to OU is indicative of the staff preferring Oklahoma guys now?
There are other guys, like across the board. This is kind of a weird outlier, I suppose. I think that's the fact.
No,
that
I feel you.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point, though. If very, very, that's actually a good, contradiction there, and not exactly the right one to bring up, because there are other guys who, have had interest and have been kind of, yeah.
And I do want to say, there is potential if he went to, not to too much mental gymnastics or sort of jump through too many hoops, but if he went to Heritage, right, he's getting a tuition cut by like 50% when it comes to OU tuition. So there is potential that he is sort of a, like a Drake Stoops style team player, or even Brady when he took pay cuts at the Patriots, where you're looking at a thing like, hey, you will play, we're going to give you a shot to play, but hey, do you want to be a team player, be a preferred walk-on for a little bit? It's not going to be a financial hardship at all for your family to pay in-state at OU, and we can give that scholarship to someone else. So there's potential maybe that something like that is going on for a little bit too, to give OU the benefit of the doubt when it comes to preferring the guy that took a preferred walk-on as well. That stuff does happen.
I think it's a smart play. On Drake Stoops is a different situation because he's getting his school paid for no matter what. But looking at Freeman, if they really liked his tape, which his tape is really fun to watch. I've watched it many times. Obviously he runs all over the field, breaks all kind of tackles, makes moves. But you look at his situation, an OU legacy where his dad played. He's financially well off if he's going to a school like Heritage Hall, private school in Oklahoma City. And he has an offer at another place. They could say, I like this kid, but I don't like him enough to, give him a scholarship. So let's take a gamble here. We're off him a preferred walk-on, which probably means you're going to get a scholarship in 2 years. So it's almost like a half scholarship because that's how the majority of times works for people that stick through it. And you can kind of hedge your bets on it and say like, okay, you can come. I feel pretty good. Probably he'll end up coming if we give him this preferred walk-on deal. And maybe there's some kind of little money on the side. Who knows how NIL works with that nowadays? And he'll come either way, and we don't have to spend our scholarship number on them. And we didn't take that many people in this recruiting class. We lost a lot of decommits. So this just keeps you more flexible moving towards with the portal. And we've seen it times in the past, and I don't think we'll see it much in the future, but where certain colleges can't take a guy because they don't have a scholarship spot in the portal, and it's a guy that could really, really help them. So I feel like a lot of teams, almost kind of similar. I hate to keep on making NBA references, but a lot of teams don't pick all 15 players on their team. They leave 14 players so they have that chance to take a buyout, aka a transfer portal. Keep a couple of open scholarships throughout the year, and if you want, and if you want a guy through the portal, you take them. But if not, you can give those scholarships to the preferred walk-ons at the end of the year if you don't land the people that you want.
Yeah, no, that flexibility is huge, especially because, keep in mind, Brent's only been on the job, 2 months? So, there will be some time to evaluate the portal. Portal is always live. A lot of guys, not for spring, you're not going to get anyone in before, spring game or anything for sure. But, fall transfers, that's a thing. So, that's definitely...
We can still get guys to join this football team before the season. This is not over. Just because there is a deadline for you to attend spring classes, that's more for academic eligibility and stuff like that. Getting your classes done so you can move on towards eligibility requirements for NFL draft and stuff. But there's going to be people that are going to enter the portal here in this coming spring. And we're going to probably pick them up. I saw something in our chat a little bit earlier from one of our guys that's been popping into the chat very frequently, 1982 Boomer Center, talking about what happens if Dylan Gabriel goes down. Do we turn to a walk-on? Do we turn to, Evers, the true freshman? And the true fact of it is now that, our guys are gone, these high swings and Dart and Caleb Williams, we can just take our time because, yes, we do not have an optimal backup situation. but our quarterbacks don't get hit that much in practice and in training that the chance of him getting injured in practice is low. And we can be very, very patient with the portal. And I would not be surprised if we see a pretty competent quarterback hit the portal that could be a very solid backup for OU and an insurance policy, a guy that's a little bit older, that's been around, that we'd feel very good at being behind Dillon Gabriel.
I agree. Getting an insurance type of quarterback, priority number one in the portal.
Well, and that's something that finally having news with Caleb Williams opens up, because like we sort of talked about earlier, not to rehash old conversations, but even for USC, the Jackson Darts transfer, which he is transferring to Ole Miss. So that was, Ole Miss was tied up in this whole situation as well, and just there's so many effects of finally getting news that now you got people that are potentially looking at the portal. Probably, I honestly believe, I don't know that it's going to be a big name or a super significant guy, but I 100% believe OU is going to pick up at least one more quarterback in the transfer portal in this offseason. And now you have a thing where people are looking, not to disparage Dillon Gabriel, but guys are looking at, hey, where am I going to go? Do I want to have a quarterback battle against Caleb Williams and Dillon Gabriel potentially at OU if I try to transfer there to play for Levy? Or am I going to have a quarterback battle against just Dillon Gabriel, which, just based on basic statistics, it's already a better case, regardless of who's better or not better. So I think this does open up the potential for OU to get another significant quarterback in potentially. But if not, I think 100% OU is going to pick up at least another quarterback in the transfer portal in this offseason. I think that without a doubt, that's going to occur. I'm not saying it's going to be someone significant, breaking news, big storylines. It'll probably be a guy at a Power 5 program that hasn't ever really started a snap even potentially, like a younger guy, probably not a superstar, but it will happen, I think, without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. The transfer portal always, there will always be someone looking for greener grass. And kind of early on, if you're looking at, well, am I going to be like the third string guy or the second string guy? And Jackson Dart is looking at going to OU. You probably not wanting to transfer at that time. So we'll see how it goes for there. But we can officially begin like the true off season, out with the old, in with the new. I feel like this was the last bit of fallout from the Lincoln Riley decision. I think things going forward not going to be as messy. Obviously, this is OU football, so things are always complicated. But this feels like the last big kind of thing from that decision, from this insane 2021 year, and we can finally put that to rest and move forward towards the Brent Venables era.
Definitely. And like I said earlier, we're not going to still move forward because everyone's going to be all eyes on USC this year. There's no doubt about it. I
don't have a segment every week where we talk about Lincoln Riley and what they're doing, though. That's,
you
know what I mean?
No, we're not going to have a segment about them.
And, you know what I mean? Like, I know, and I know that's not what you're proposing, but I'm just like, I'm ready to just, if they come up on the weekend spread or something,
Yeah, it's the off season right now. We're pushing for content right now, and thankfully we got plenty of content that we were given to us. But I mean, I know that Ty and Bobby and I have been cooking up some good ideas of things to talk about in the off season when news is a little bit more quiet. So we're gonna keep pushing episodes out for y'all. So people who are listening live, just kind of seeing this, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube, hit the notification, make sure whenever we're going live. Check us out on wherever you get your podcast too, because we'll be continuing to put out OU football content the whole year.
Yeah, no, and if you're just joining us now, feel free to, this is about to end. You can rewind, check that out. Just hit 200 subscribers on YouTube. Thank y'all so much. A lot of y'all came here during the Brent saga and all that wildness in December, and we're looking forward to hanging out with y'all throughout the off season and really getting into the meat of the schedule once again in the far distant future. But we really appreciate y'all joining us and giving us a chance, and we got a lot of cool stuff coming your way. So thank you so much for for the subs, and welcome to the squad. So, yeah. Ty?
Tune in next podcast because we do one every week. We're contractually obliged to, thanks to our friends at the Pigskin Podcast Network and DraftKings. If you're in a state that allows DraftKings, or if you're not, get a VPN and sign up for DraftKings with promo code TPPN.
Do not do not do a VPN. Do not illegally use DraftKings. Please do not.
Commit crimes on behalf of the Schooner Pod. Anyways, tune in hypothetically, just for legal reasons. We'll bring on our Schooner Pod legal counsel. Actually, that could be an interesting bit. We'll bring on our resident attorney in Texas, which is where we're going to have to incorporate, I guess, because that's where our attorney is, to talk about the legalities of sports betting. But tune into the next Schooner Pod next week, where I have a special segment on a special time in history when OU had two NCAA football teams, the Sooners and the Zoomers, and the more successful team is not the one that you would expect. So, quick.
Yeah, no, we definitely need to do a Zoomers show. That is truly one of the cooler things that I'd found out this year. So I'm looking forward to that. The AP ranked Norman Zoomers, I might add. So yeah, we got a lot of fun, creative stuff, a lot of different stuff from what you're usually used to. We hope to have a good time, and we hope to see you next time on the Schooner Pod. For me, Ty, Jameson, this has been our little break in Caleb news. So we can finally move on. Everyone in the comments, it's over. We can move on.
Lincoln, suck on this.
What is that? A rock?
Why do you have a rock that says "suck on this"?
Do you not understand the reference?
It's a medical thing. You wouldn't get it.
It's from The Office. It's the gift Michael gave to Toby.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's been a while. I need to rewatch it. So.
Oh, is it like a stress ball? Actually,
no. There was a stress ball that I had here. I used it a lot, but I think I broke it.
All right.
Cut us off.
Bye, everyone. Ugh, lovely stuff.